there, everybody here. We have a great crowd tonight, which is wonderful, and I know we've got a lot of people signed up on Facebook Live. And so we're going to have a super meeting. There's so much interest in our guests tonight and their story. So we're going to get started. But before we do our event, first of all, we're going to have Kathy give general announcements, and then we're going to have Kevin Fitzpatrick tell us a little bit about his peanut butter and jelly brigade and how you might help if you were so inclined. And then we'll get to our program tonight. Kathy, you are on. And here's a microphone. We have a microphone now for a change, so it makes it louder. You've got to be right up close to it.
Fantastic. Okay. Can you all hear me? Great. Okay. First of all, my name is Kathy Merrick. I'm the membership chairperson for Chesterfield Township Democrats. And I'm just thrilled to see such a large crowd tonight. We're so interested in our speakers, and thank you so much for coming. I'd like to first make the citizens of Chesterfield, aware of something that you live in the city of Chesterfield. Okay, if you are a Chesterfield resident, or if you know Chesterfield residents, I'm going to pass around a handout. I'll start it here. And it describes, part of it's hard to read, and I apologize for that, but I don't know if you have heard, but the Planning Commission of Chesterfield has approved a development program for a downtown Chesterfield to be developed. It has already gone through the Planning Commission, has been approved by the Planning Commission of Chesterfield, and it is going to be presented next Monday night, the 17th, to the Chesterfield City Council for their approval. And chances are they are going to approve it. We understand that the mayor and the city council are very much in favor of it. Well, what it is it's where Chesterfield Mall was and behind and around it. And I don't know if you've driven up there lately, but there's some single family homes starting at $1 million that have postage stamp plots. But that's scary. But this is the downtown Chesterfield area. What they're proposing is 2,880 high density, high priced, multi-family, either condo or apartments for this 96-acre part of land, which we don't know specifics on. They haven't given specifics, nor do they intend to, but everyone is there's a committee that is called the Concerned Citizens of, and it's listed there in your handout, the Concerned Citizens for the Development of Downtown Chesterfield, that has a Facebook page. Okay, and the Facebook page, if you are interested in this or know people who may be, please urge them to go to two things. First, go to the Facebook page. Sign that you are in opposition to this development if you are, because there are concerns about traffic density, the connectivity of the area with the surrounding area, the it could change the whole character of our. So, and then there's a second ask that I have, and please tell your friends. Monday night, July 17th, next Monday night, I and some other speakers and whoever else is there in support, and we would beg you to be in that meeting at City Hall to show your concern, which is about to be sort of railroaded through. And it's something that it's frightening that it's coming, and aspect was first made several years ago. There was a part of it that said that affordable housing would be a part of the development. Well, somewhere along the way that got left out. And, you know, we're not talking Section 8. We're talking just affordable housing where a teacher, a firefighter, a workforce housing, you might call it, of people who are going to live and work or work in the area. What's being proposed may be totally out of that price range. You know, already, I don't know if you know, there are many teachers, firefighters who work in St. Louis County and in Chesterfield who live in O'Fallon because of the prices in Chesterfield. So it is a concern that they have left that out, and that's going to be a question that we're going to address. So please go to the Facebook page, sign the survey, or sign the petition, complete the survey, and please, if you can, come Monday night at 7 p.m. to City Hall. Okay, that's my spiel for that. Thank you. Yes, question?
I just want to emphasize that I think if we have concerns, the concerns are not that it's high-density housing, although that's going to affect schools, it's going to affect traffic, but more the lack of affordable
Yes.
housing, which there is none in the city of Chesterfield right now.
That's right. Nothing's being built.
And school systems.
Yes, and Parkway is very concerned. Most of it's Parkway Central Corridor. And at one time, Parkway had an estimate of the number of children they thought would be coming as a result of this development. And then the city council just told them, forget it. No, they're not going to be kids there or whatever. And you know, Parkway feels like their hands are tied. There's nothing much that they can do. Yes, question, Pam?
What about ADA and accessible housing for people with disabilities?
I don't know that that's even been mentioned.
That's a really important question because you know, as we all age,
Sure,
that's a big deal.
sure. And I just, you know, I don't know, but I'm glad you brought that up. I will bring that up as, you know, when I speak Monday night to ask that question as well.
Are they attempting to give a tip? Are they attempting to give a tip?
It has a TIF. It has a TIF, and I understand that, you know, in the TIF, there's nothing written in the TIF that includes affordable housing. Many TIFs do have a, you know, provision for that. It's not written in. Yes.
If I could just add, I don't know the exact details, but I know that there is a tip for this, and that both Parkway and Rockwood expressed concerns about this because it is deferring the taxes to the school district.
Yes.
And Parkway in particular, the numbers that they had calculated, from what I understand, was possibly the addition of the school.
Yeah.
But Chesterfield said, no, that's not going to happen because people with kids won't move into these apartments.
So who is going to move in these 800 units?
But they were basically cuckooed,
Mm-hmm.
and so the TIF has gone through. I don't know the exact details of it, but I do know that both of the school districts were very vocally against it.
As I understand, it's a very small section of the area that's actually Rockwood. So it's mostly central corridor of Parkway that it will be impacted. And Parkway was basically told, sit down and don't talk about this anymore. And there is a Dillard's lawsuit. You know, Dillard's, when they flooded a few years back, they kept that property, and there's a huge lawsuit that Dillard's is bringing against all this. And so a lot of, you know, there might not be a final decision until they work out what happens in that lawsuit. But even so, I think we need to show that not everyone is in favor of this. Okay, thank you. Enough about that. Okay, wanted to tell you we are not having a meeting, Chesterfield Township Democrat meeting next month. In September, we will host Wesley Bell as our speaker. In October, can we announce what we're trying to?
No, we'll just hold on.
Okay, okay, okay.
Reaching out. October's a long time away.
Okay, it is. And then also there is the Clarkson Road cleanup that we always we sponsor. There is a mile section of Clarkson Road that we're responsible for picking up trash. We do that every couple of months, and I'll pass around a sheet if you're interested. It's a fun time. It's more social than work, and it's going to be Saturday. You don't agree? Sorry. It's August 5th, Saturday morning, and we'll start at 9 before it gets too hot, and we just pick up trash. We sometimes divide guys and girls one side or the other, or sometimes not. But anyway, it's fun. And I'd like to also, I know a lot of you, I gave a membership form, or we gave you a membership form on your way in the door. If you are a member, double check with us if you have paid dues for 23. If you are not a member, we would certainly appreciate your support if you would join us. If you support our mission and our cause, we have a lot of expenses related to social media, as you might expect. as well as we support candidates and progressive causes along the way as we can afford. So if you can join us, you can either mail that back in the envelope or join online through ActBlue. And now I would like to introduce Kevin Fitzgerald, who is going to talk about the Missouri Network, which is a harm reduction center that he's quite involved in. And we are all making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to help him with the cause. Come on up, Kevin. Oh, we have to. Oh.
You want to leave? Thank you. I really don't have much to say. This is a pretty simple thing I did, and Chesterfield Township Club has been gracious enough to help me promote it, which I didn't even count on doing. Anyway, I've volunteered a lot throughout the years for homeless centers and things, and now I'm volunteering at a recovery center based in harm reduction. And to that end, we reach out to folks and try to accept folks and bring them in where they're at, talk to them, accept them, treat them as people. So every Tuesday night we have a giveaway where we hand out various items that promote harm reduction. I'm going to leave it at that. I can get into specifics if somebody wants me to. But anyway, when I started, this is a very, very small place, smaller than this room, probably 3/4 of the width and the same length. And they get 150 people, 120, 150 people in there on a Tuesday night throughout the night. But we just hand out items over a table. And I started just making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at home because I learned this through various places I volunteered. And one night I'm making them, playing on the computer, and I just thought, well, I'll ask them if anybody's interested in doing this. So I just typed on there, if anybody's interested in making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the recovery center to hand out to homeless, addicted, mentally challenged folks, I'd be happy to take them. And it really grew. It was phenomenal, the response, actually. So it's been going on for a couple of months. And I always say you don't know the value of a simple peanut butter and jelly sandwich when you're trying to show people they're safe, that you're there for them, that type of thing. It opens conversations. Just tonight, I had people say, hey, you're getting known, not me, the center, you're getting known for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and all this. And now, thankfully, I'm getting enough. We are getting enough. I had to quit the eye. We're getting enough that when somebody comes in, we can hand them a whole loaf of bread of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches if they need it, if they want it, if they've got people they're going back to, whatever. We get people that are really challenged to make it through a day, quite honestly. So that's what it's all about. And I guess I should ask if anybody's...
Anybody wants to help, how they can help. You know, you can either take checks or bring the sandwiches. Just tell them what to do.
If anybody's... It's kind of strange because I just have this... It's only me, and grassroots gets thrown around, that term gets thrown around. This is as grassroots as it gets, folks. I ask people to bring them to my house. I have a garage, a big garage, and it has a regular man door. That's been unlocked. I don't know how I haven't been burgled throughout the years, because I've done this for years for political yard signs, clothing drives, everything. I just leave it open. Now I have tables set up. People can come at any time, open the door, walk 2 steps in, and there's the tables. They can leave peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, water. Water's really critical right now. So that's how it's set up. I can give anybody my address, or if at meetings people want to bring peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, what I ask for is 2 loaves. And then if you want to do more, that's fine too. And like yesterday, we had the West County meeting, and people were incredibly generous. So today I had a huge load and 18 cases of water I took down. from donations. And otherwise, I don't know really what to say. If anybody's interested,
They have to be wrapped in a Ziploc bag.
yeah, I go through all this on Facebook. I have it, huh?
Just tell them what they
White bread, yes, thank you. It's very simple as can be. Don't get creative. Don't. White bread, inexpensive white bread, creamy peanut butter, and then jelly. Individually wrapped, and then you can put them back in the loaf bag if you want, or in a box, or anything. Yes?
Do you need sun butter sandwiches since peanuts are a lethal allergen? Or?
No, I don't want to get into all that. This is too hectic. This isn't a situation where people come and sit and eat. This is a situation where you've got a small area like this, if you can imagine. 4 of us sitting behind a table, handing out stuff. They have to fill out things on a computer, and there's just people there for what we're giving. So, and then they take these sandwiches and go somewhere else. So it's
Oh, I'm sorry, thought you were done. What day
Two-
do you go down there?
I go there Tuesday. So if it's a situation of
You have to come in Monday to Tuesday.
yeah, if it's a situation of people bringing them to my house, which I'll give you my address or whatever. I don't know if I should, because it's
Well, you're on Facebook.
I'm on
Yeah.
Facebook, Fitzgerald with a capital G. So yes, Tuesdays by noon is when I need them, and that means you can bring them Saturday, Sunday, whatever. I also have a refrigerator right there. There's a number of people helping me here already. I miss Mary today. They told me you were there, and Sue, forgive me, dementia isn't as much fun as I thought it'd be. So, and then a few others, I don't know, but any rate, that's what it's all about. And then individually wrapped, because again, we hand them out and they take them, and then they take them wherever they want to go, or sometimes when they're waiting, they'll eat them there too. So if anybody's interested, let me know, and I'll set it up. And I apologize for this sloppy presentation, but I don't know what else. The other thing I wanted to say real quick is I am big on intersection, and everything intersects with another. Homelessness, mental health, addiction is all trauma-based. The 3 of them, and I'm no expert, I'm just saying from life experience, is incredible. I'm so proud of my 2 friends over there speaking for their children tonight, because this homelessness, mental health issues, addiction is extreme in the trans community, and that's a big issue. So I'm if anybody isn't familiar with harm reduction, I would ask that you look it up and read about it. And it's basically accepting people without expectation. When these people come in, we don't say, we'll give you a peanut butter jelly sandwich if you promise you're going to go to recovery. We give them peanut butter jelly, water, whatever we have, and talk to them as much as we can. So anyway, I want to express my gratitude for them to be here and to not only support their child, but celebrate them. I'm as pissed off as anybody over what's going on in our state now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin is certainly a gem for all of us and for all the people that he helps every day. He always figures out some way to serve people. I mean, he's incredible at finding the need and then carrying through for it. So, Kevin, thank you very much. So now we can get to our program. We know how horrible it's been, as Kevin just said. Danielle Merritt and James Thoreau are parents of Miles, and Chris Hyman had to work tonight, unfortunately, so she can't be here, but they'll be able to present and take all your questions. So we know that they've driven back and forth to Jeff City to advocate, and now we're going to understand just how personally this impacts them in trying to advocate and be loving toward their child. So come on up. And I'm going to give you a microphone because we're live streaming, but it's easier for the audience and everybody to hear.
We were told this.
Oh, yes.
You can just do
It's,
that.
yeah.
Just say it.
Okay.
As long as you're.
Oops, where do you want to go?
Stay on that side.
And you've got the slide flipper.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I can't see out of the side, so we're trying to so I can actually see my wife as we're doing the presentation.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I use she, her pronouns. This is my husband, James. As Maureen mentioned, we were hoping Chris could be here with us tonight.
Work emergency, she was not able to make it, and it's kind of par for the course for how a lot of this goes. My stepfather passed away recently, and we just drove 8 hours back from northern Wisconsin this morning, so things are a little scattered. On top of just this being a very emotional topic for us, you'll have to excuse us.
It's just fine, you can just calm down, we all love you.
Thank you very much.
Or more importantly, you're in a safe space.
You are in a safe space.
Thank you very much.
But you may want to be using the mic for
Oh,
Yeah.
the mic.
All right, so this is our presentation on parenting a transgender kiddo in Missouri, or just in general, but in Missouri. The reality, which, sorry, not sorry, I get a little passionate, so I'm going to try to do my best to keep this clean, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. What am I missing? Oh, here we go. So first of all, as my husband mentioned, we just got home from Wisconsin, so we just unbuckled, but y'all need to buckle up because we got a lot to cover in like 40 minutes, and this is I'm like a fire hose of information. This is like a dissertation on how much I love my transgender kiddo and all of the bullshit we've gone through to get where we are and keep our kids safe. First of all, are there any children that I need to be super concerned about watching this show?
We are on Facebook.
We are on Facebook. Okay.
Do
I'm
our
going to do my
best.
best. But just maybe a little warning. All right. So this is our transparent story. There are other transparents here tonight. I highly recommend if you ever have a chance to listen to a transparent or a transgender person of any age, please listen to them. Listen to their story.
Everybody's story is different. We'll tell you that's would have been great if Chris was here, because Chris has been going through this. We all met at our first transparent meeting, and every family goes through their own process with this. So speaking to as many people about these things, you'll get a full range of stories and all the impacts that this legislation and Board of Education stuff has on our lives.
Yes, and even though we've all gone through this legislative experience together, some of us have been in the same hearing rooms together, and we had very different experiences. Sometimes we don't even get inside a hearing room, even though we take off work and we drive on 24 hours notice to go stand up for our kids and other kids in our community. We don't even get in the hearing room every time. We get to stand in the hallway. We get 0 seconds to speak. So thank you, first of all, for listening. This is probably the most time we've ever had to speak to anyone about our transgender child. And this is all related. What we see in Jefferson City is all tied into what we're going to be seeing in our local school boards. Amy Ryan ran for school board, and that's one of the most disappointing losses. One of the most qualified people I've ever met to run for school board, and knows how to ask the right questions. I remember the first time Amy asked me, because she had as a kid in middle school, and knows that this is around the time that kiddos are going to start identifying, as LGBTQ, and she wanted to know, how can I make my home a safe and affirming place in case one of my children's friends come out as LGBTQ, and I want to make them feel safe. And those are very easy questions you can ask. I want to thank you for that. And there's a lot of impacts. There's impacts not just in school board, but families are making life-altering decisions, not just on their child's health care, but where to live. We've had friends, 3 friends in the last month that have sold their dream homes, and they've moved to other states because it is not safe here in Missouri. So if you want to know how much we love our kids, we will sell our home and sell our businesses, and we will leave to get them to a safe place if we have to. And this is going to be our story about what we're doing to keep our kids safe. All right. So our transparent story. My kiddo's very first sentence, the first time he strung 6 words together, was when he said, "I don't feel like a girl." And I was just more excited that he had put 6 words together, because he only ever said 4 words. And he said, "I don't feel like a girl." And I was like, "I don't feel like a girl." And I was like, "Whoa!" And I checked off that milestone in the parenting book, because you have to know when they push up and when they start walking. And that was my kid's first sentence, was trying to tell me he was transgender, and I had no idea. And then we proceeded for the whole next decade, and I let my kid wear what he wanted to wear. If he wanted to wear a superhero shirt, I said, "Great, as long as it's weather appropriate and it's clean. But I don't care, wear whatever you want to wear." But I always knew from preschool something was up. Teachers would reach out to me. We actually had to repeat kindergarten. Miles had to repeat kindergarten. He was at a private kindergarten, because I knew very early on something's up with this kid. And when it came time to transition to Rockwood and go into first grade, he went through his little assessment again, and they're like, "I don't know, something's up with this kid." I was like, "Good, I'm glad you see it, because I know something's up." Nobody knew. And every parent-teacher conference, from first grade, second grade, third grade, the teachers were asking me, they're like, "How do we reach this kid? Something's going on, we don't really know what's happening."
Nobody could put their finger on exactly
Nobody
what it
knew.
was. They just knew that there was something off.
And his coaches knew too. He was on the volleyball team. He was on basketball. I remember his coach, his volleyball or basketball coach, coming to me and asking, "Does Miles hate me?" And this is before we knew it was Miles. "Does Miles hate me?" And we're like, "No. We don't. Miles does not hate you. We don't know what's going on." And I was like,
He thinks you're great.
"Yeah, we loved Coach Jerry. He'd coached Miles for years, and the same team for years." And everybody knew he didn't quite belong. And even there was a mom who made little headbands or bows or something for everyone on the team, and she made something different. And this is a mom who's a super Republican, voted for Trump. Her kiddo and Miles were best friends since kindergarten. And even that mom knew something was a little different with Miles. Didn't want Miles to be left out, but she made a little something different, so Miles was still
included, but he didn't have to wear a headband with a bow on it.
It was too
There's
girly.
no way that he was going to wear that.
Right. Already knew.
And while Miles was growing up, he wanted to be in Boy Scouts. He wanted to wear Spider-Man, underoos and stuff like that. He always a lot of his stereotypical male things were very apparent when you look back on them. In the moment, they're just one spot in a long line of history.
But I didn't know. I put him in Girls on the Run because I was like, I want to be women's empowerment, and it's a good program. We want to be healthy. So I coached Girls on the Run. I coached his soccer team. I was a very involved parent. And in 5th grade, he came out as queer, his second time coming out. He came out as queer, which I assumed just gay because I had no idea. And then the 3rd time's a charm. So finally, in 6th grade, Miles had to sit down and be like, "I'm transgender." Had to kind of shake me by the shoulders and tell me this is what's up. And that was October of 2018. And my initial reaction to being the parent of a transgender kiddo in Rockwood, Missouri, was not great. I was not smiling. I was not leaving my bathroom floor.
And it had nothing to do with Miles.
It had nothing to do with Miles. It was more, oh my God, this is not the place to be. And just to be clear, fast forward however many years, thank you. Pretty much every fear that I had back in October of 2018 the reality is much worse than what I had anticipated back then. But nonetheless, we had a great response from Rockwood. We met with the school counselor and our grade level principal. They told us about the transparent support group, which James and I were the St. Louis chapter leaders for last year. We learned about the Gender Center at WashU, where we are now patients. And let's see. Oh, but we didn't tell my family right away. I was raised Catholic, and I don't know if you all have noticed, but religious folks are not always super accepting of LGBTQ folks. So while we were very accepting at home and using Miles' name and he, him pronouns and the same at school, we were not out to my Catholic family. And we had to go back and forth between his name on his birth certificate and and Miles.
Which is a very common thing that parents of transgender kids have to go through, because you're not certain who you can tell, like there's work, friends, family, and so that is usually one of the hardest parts when it begins, is splitting your brain into all these different groups and trying to keep track of who knows what. It's very difficult.
It was very stressful. That was probably, other than the legislation, that was the most stressful time, is trying to hide this from my family. And they could tell, like, knew just from looking at me, like, something is going on. Thankfully, they were very supportive when we did come out. And eventually we did get into the WashU Transgender Center after about, 3 months. One of the things you hear when kids come out as transgender, like, parents immediately, like, start injecting them with hormones. Absolutely not. It is a very long process. I did try to include a timeline just so you can see how long and how much time we've had to think about it. In addition to the 10 years of, before this, once he did come out as trans, it did take many months to get an appointment. The very first appointment that we had at the Transgender Center was with my then boyfriend, James, I went with. And I had no idea, as a single mom, up until that point, I had made every healthcare decision, every vaccine my kid needed, every doctor's appointment, I was able to do without any confirmation from the biological father. I would text him, let him know like what we're doing and all that, but I never had to get his signature or anything. So when we go to the Transgender Center and they're like, do you have, I don't even remember the words, but it is a very complicated process to start gender-affirming healthcare. You need both parents to sign off on everything, and I did not grasp that. Eventually, my baby daddy, he has a PhD. He's got a master's in biomechanics, a PhD in biophysiology. He taught endocrinology at a medical school, as a matter of fact. And initially, before he, spent a lot of time, because he's very busy with his own research. I'm not going to say anything. But at any rate, he didn't go into all the details and all the methodology, of all the research. All he did was kind of read the headlines, and you hear bad things about healthcare if you don't really look at the research. And when he came in and met with our endocrinologist at the Gender Center, and it was a full-on science fight. Like, they went back and forth. We now have full support from my very educated PhD in biology.
And just some notes.
Yeah.
Mike has done research, baby daddy, has done research on doping of athletes, so he has experience with, effects of taking testosterone and other performance-enhancing drugs. And also, we'll bring this up, someone who will come up often in this, Jamie Reed, who was the whistleblower at WashU. She was our caseworker and was in on the meeting that Miles' father had with his doctor and witnessed the science fight, as we like to call it, that went on between the two. And I want to stress, it's not that Miles' doctor was trying to convince Mike of what he should be doing. He was trying to help Mike evaluate what studies were not junk science, which ones had proper methodology, which ones had good sample groups, and things along those lines. Because Mike had a whole bunch of research in his hand, and Miles' doctor went through and pointed out all the problems with the different studies and said, this is a good study, this is the bad one. When all that information was presented to Mike and he went through and read it all, he's been behind us 100%.
Nonetheless, nothing happened. Even after we got that letter, we had the therapist letter, we still had to do this thing called insurance. So I know we hear, there's teens going to the Gender Center and they're walking out with hormones. How much cash do these kids have? Do these parents not read the, explanation of benefits? We all know what happens. We have to go through this whole process. So when you hear, these kids are just getting drugs right away.
Yeah.
No, they're
So-
not.
So in regard to the insurance, so I work at a large law firm. They have gender-affirming healthcare. They multiple plans. Only one offers gender-affirming healthcare. We are the first people to take advantage of that benefit. The amount of education that we have had to give to our HR people has been kind of staggering, because even though they say they offer gender-affirming healthcare, they have no idea what is entailed with gender-affirming healthcare. So it's been, we are lucky that it's covered. Most people it's not covered, and even with coverage, like Miles' puberty blocker was, how much did it cost? With grant, 30.
It was like with just regular, it was like $32,000, and then insurance covered, I think, down to like it was. I forget. It was like $5,000 still, like with insurance.
And then you got a grant.
And we got a grant for a couple thousand. Are you gonna tell me a 12-year-old is like filling out grant applications for their health care?
Paying
No, they're not.
$30,000 out of pocket, and these parents don't know what's going on.
So-
If I spent $30,000, I think I would know what's going on.
So when you hear anyone saying parents don't know what's happening,
It's just lies,
it's bullshit. So
which is a reoccurring theme. There's a lot of lies
yes.
and a lot of BS that we have witnessed in our time with this.
So finally, in August of 2019, Miles finally got his puberty blocker. After all that,
And we were lucky in that
we were very lucky.
We didn't have any sort of delays in finding therapists, because that is a common topic of discussion at our transparent meetings is what therapist has experience in this and is accepting new patients, and hopefully will accept our insurance. God, if you're lucky, you can find somebody who's accepting patients. Most of the time, you cannot. And we lucked out. The first, Miles was seeing a therapist before he started on gender-affirming care. This therapist had no experience and was basically dismissive out of hand.
when Miles came out as trans to the original therapist, the therapist said, well, Caitlyn Jenner isn't any happier as transgender or something. And
Miles
it may be even like dead. I don't even know. But it was, and so I was like, okay, we finished the appointment, and we're like, well, clearly we have more work to do, and we signed up for the next few appointments, and then on the drive home, I was like, do you feel comfortable going back to this therapist? And Miles was like, no. So then we had to start a hunt for a new therapist. Anyone trying to find a therapist recently? Takes a few months.
And I want to stress, it's not that we wanted somebody that's going to rubber stamp what we do. We wanted somebody who has experience and would at least be open to this idea. Because if you're not even considered that, there are transgender kids out there, because, there transgender people exist, that means transgender kids exist. So you have to be open to that, and you have to, be willing to explore that idea. This first therapist had no desire to do that.
No. But we did finally get gender-affirming healthcare, and then life was good. We were living a happy, normal, suburban life. And our kid was thriving, and, so going through the best-case scenario. All right, so I don't know about y'all. That's really small. I'm sorry, I did this in the car. But the best-case scenario is you're going to have early identification. Your kiddo's going to come out, like Miles at 2, and then you're going to monitor, and you're going to get on a puberty blocker. You're going to be monitoring. We didn't do that exactly, but we came pretty close. And you pause puberty. All we want to do with hormone blockers is pause puberty for a couple years. And I don't know if there's any parent in here that ever was like, hey, can we pump the brakes on puberty? It sucks super bad, right? So y'all should be jealous that we get to do this, and you don't.
And the whole point of that is just to make sure that the decision that you're making is the right one. That's the pure pause. I mean, the reason for having the pause in puberty, because like any medical decision, very important. We want to make sure we're making the correct one.
Yeah, and there is concern because, admittedly, and we found this out on our very first appointment, puberty blockers are not FDA approved for transgender anything. There is no FDA approved medication for transgender people because it is unethical to do a double-blind study on transgender folks when we already know this medication works. It's FDA approved. For example, the puberty blockers are FDA approved for precocious puberty, for endometriosis, for cystic fibroids, and prostate cancer. We know it works. We know the side effects. There will never be an FDA approval process and never be a double-blind study for this. We knew this on our very first appointment.
The off-label usage of the drugs is something that comes up often in the legislation. And then if you have ever asked a pediatrician, have you ever used drugs off-label, they will just laugh. Because they're like, every drug we use is off-label.
Anyone ever give their kid Miralax? That's off-label. What are you going to do? Let your kid die from constipation or give them Miralax, even though it hasn't been FDA approved below 17? We give FDA, or we don't, it's off-label all the time. So we know this. It's fine. So we paused puberty, and then we are now on gender-affirming hormones. Miles is on testosterone. Again, back to my very first appointment, when I found out that we were going to have to inject our kid with testosterone, I was like, you are on your own. I have a phobia of needles. Fast forward to Miles' very first time getting testosterone, and we have to take a video, like we have to go through this whole educational thing of how to do it, and how to measure, and how to clean. I'm sweating, and I pass out, like in the office. And the nurse in the I passed out hard. And I was like trying to get his attention. I was like, oh man, like going down, going down.
The video, because I'm the one who has to, help Miles with the shot. So I'm like, I gotta get the video. Don't bother me.
And so if people are saying like, oh, you're pushing this on your kids. No, absolutely not. Like, I don't push anything. Like, no,
Yeah.
it's not. It's not. And then surgery, first of all, for transgender people of youth, adults, not everyone wants gender-affirming hormones. Not every adult wants surgery. Some people only want top surgery. Some people also want bottom surgery. All you need to know is this is a very complex decision that patients should make between themselves and their doctors, and we would very much like people to stop thinking about our kids' genitals.
But more importantly, surgery is not something that happens on minors. This drives us crazy when we talk to reporters and we hear stories on the news, when we read news stories, is that they will use sound clips from Republican legislators that are talking about like genital mutilation. And these things do not happen. It's a pure and utter lie, and it's only done to just confuse and rile people up. We had some friends that recently had top surgery, and again, this goes to the whole like parents just walk in and kids get it. To try to find somebody that will do this, and this is not a minor, this was somebody who was over 18, is really difficult to start with. And then again, the cost to do it is like $30,000 just to begin with, and oftentimes not covered by insurance. So these are, when we hear that, that kids are just getting this treatment without any sort of oversight, I don't know about you, but like my kid does not have access to $30,000 plus to be able to have this type of surgery,
And the recovery process is, there's a lot. We have a very limited amount of time, but I could go into much more detail. Again, we have our whistleblower, Jamie Reed from the Gender Center, who we are pretty sure that we were in the affidavit. It's like, has anyone read this, knows what I'm talking about? This thing, it's like 1% true and like 99% made up.
Jamie actually helped us prepare early on in the legislation for testimony, helping us so that when the legislators would say crazy things, we could say, well, actually, this is the truth. And I have quoted her in legislation, and so it's so difficult to hear her saying these things when she is, we've heard her say the exact opposite things in our situations.
Right. And another thing, Jamie Reed and the Attorney General, a lot of Republicans are saying that gender clinics are popping up everywhere. Really, the next clinic is in Chicago.
And they're not taking patients from out of state any longer, because we have had friends reach out to them as a backstop to say, hey, if the Gender Center here in St. Louis closes, can we come there? And they had appointments set up, and then they were called back and said, we're canceling your appointment because we have so much, we can't take patients out of state.
Yeah, and after the whistleblower report came out and the Attorney General did his emergency rule, WashU did release the actual numbers of patients, and I think the number of patients that received a puberty blocker was like less than 60 since they opened, however many years ago, and patients receiving gender-affirming hormones was like 300. It was a very, very low number, like such a low number.
It's really difficult to get accurate numbers on how many people are transgender, like what the percentage of the population is, because what do you consider someone to be transgender? Are they receiving gender affirming health care? Is it something that they self-identify with? Things along those lines. So it's a really difficult statistic to gather. But even when you look at like the wide range, the number of kids that the Gender Center is treating is much smaller than what all the estimates of the transgender population are. So when they say there's tons of kids that are getting this treatment, again, just blatant lies.
Yes. All right. Okay, and again, stop thinking about our kids' gender. It's great. All right, it's creepy. Okay. But the best thing I can say right now is for our family, in spite of all this, we are very happy. This is us getting married on 36 hours notice. In our friend's family room, and you can see that's my dad, there's my mom, there's Miles, my sister Michelle. My entire family lives in Missouri. All the Mearts are here. So when people say, why don't you just leave? I don't know, I like these people, and I feel like I should be able to call my mom and be like, hey, tell dad to get a haircut and get married tomorrow, and it's no problem. And everything was really great for a week. On our 1 week anniversary, we went to our transparent support group meeting to tell all of our friends that we had gotten married on 36 hours notice and how great it was. And instead we walk in to this absolute horror show of a meeting, hearing about this legislation that had been filed, and I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. The legislation that has been filed, the first bill I testified in opposition to was the Don't Say Gay bill. They've had that passed down in Florida. We've had healthcare bans, sports bans, drag queen bans, marriage equality bans, and bathroom bans. I don't have time to talk about all of them because of the time, but it's all it's all related. It's all nonsense. All right, here we are. That's me with short hair, and that's Miles. That's Nick Schroer, who has not listened to a single thing I've said since 2020.
Crystal Quaid.
Oh, Crystal Quaid, running for governor, yay! Oh, and Chris Hyman took this photo, February 25th, 2020. This is us testifying in opposition to Missouri's Don't Say Gay bill. The bill's sponsor was Representative Chuck Basie, and the hearing was in the House Elementary and Secondary Education Committee, of which he is the chair.
Or was at the time.
He was the chair at the time. You'll notice Chuck Basie is not there. It was his bill in his committee, and he is so aggressively ignorant, he will not even stay to listen to the parents or the people that this legislation is going to harm.
He followed the sports legislation as well, and for 3 years he refused to read the actual MISHA policy that was actually on the books. They would ask him every year, and he's like, I haven't read it. So.
Yep. So, so again, the chair of the education committee, who was a high school dropout, went to get his GED, does not care to learn about us when we go to speak, walks out of the room. And I got to tell you how much joy I got when Chuck Basie lost his local school board election in 2023. Yes. Did anyone else have Chuck Basie give you the finger or tell you to F off on Facebook? It was great. Yeah, highly recommend go troll Chuck Basie on Facebook. Okay, and it all started. The whole education ban started when this dad in the Columbia School District ripped down this poster, a GSA poster, in his daughter's middle school because it was verbally assaulting him during parent-teacher conference. Really offensive words like transgender or pansexual on it. It's a GSA, so like anybody can come and be our friends. he thought he was being verbally assaulted by the poster, and then that's how the whole Don't Say Gay bills started. Columbia, Missouri. Okay. To the 2023 Don't Say Gay education ban, didn't even get inside the room. Didn't get my voice heard. Can't tell you how irritating it is that we have to take off work and go there and don't even get hurt. All right, so healthcare bans. All right, this is the very first healthcare ban we spoke in opposition to. You probably will recognize this dude. This is my dad, Bob. This is my dad with a stack. Did I skip a slide?
No.
No, okay. I love this picture, though. So it's my mom and dad are framed perfectly. Whoever took this photo, I don't know. It just worked out that they got my parents in the photo. Oh, and that's my Uncle Bob. He is a retired social worker. You can see how happy Miles is here listening to his great uncle testify in opposition to this harmful ban. I don't know if you can see this hand right here. That's my friend Shannon Davis. She and her family moved to California. She has 3 LGBT kids, and there's nothing. She could rather be homeless and live in her car in California than move back to Missouri.
This was a night that I think we got home around 2 o'clock in the morning. The actual hearing didn't start until 6 or 7 because I think they were debating whether the Battlehawks should be the official football team of Missouri.
Kevin Fitzgerald was there. You were there.
Yeah.
And we got 30 seconds. We all got 30 seconds. This is the legislation that finally did pass this year, and we got 30 seconds to testify in opposition to it.
2020 was a great year for us because the pandemic started and shut down the legislature. So we were some people that were actually happy that the pandemic started because we did not have to deal with the healthcare ban.
And these bills in 2020, these were, the bill sponsors were Adam Schnelting from St. Charles and Susie Pollock. She's from down near Fort Leonard Wood. One of the really infuriating things about this legislation is that Susie Pollock, who is she's, thank God, no longer in
The House.
anything. She's not there at all. But in 2020, in addition to having this is her bill, HJR 105. It was a parental rights bill. Parental rights, which says every parent has a fundamental right to exercise exclusive control over all aspects of their minor children's lives without governmental interference, including but not limited to decisions regarding their minor children's custody, upbringing, education, religious instruction, discipline, physical and mental health care. Their health care. Parental rights. So the same gal who had us go and testify and tried to take away our kids' health care also says parents have the right to their kids' health care, except for us. That's because she actually had 3 anti-vax bills at the same time, so it is your parental right to not vaccinate your child, but gender-affirming health care is felony child abuse, 15 years in prison, I think was the original.
Yes, and we were supposed to feel grateful when she took that away, but she was still going to throw our kids' doctors in jail. So it's like, great, we're not going to be in jail, but our kids are still going to want to kill themselves.
Great. Yes, and now this year, Holly Jones is my state rep. We tried to meet with her several times in district. She made me go out to Jefferson City to meet with her.
Refused to meet in district.
Refused to meet in district. So that's fine. We are in Jefferson City frequently. We met with her there. And I gave her the whole history of Miles' healthcare. Talked about his first sentence was, I don't feel like a girl, and the whole process. And said that my biggest, I don't know if it was a regret or just a bit of guilt, was being so sad about being the parent of a trans kid because Rockwood, Missouri is not the place to be. Because at the same time that my kid came out as transgender, one of his classmates was diagnosed with pediatric cancer. And I talked to Holly about how they also had to look at long-term health care. What does long-term health care look like You have to talk about fertility preservation, which we have to talk about fertility preservation.
Side effects of the treatment.
Side effects of the treatment. Oh man. And I asked Holly, I'm like, do you think the state of Missouri ever got involved with that parent's healthcare decision? And she said no. I said, correct. I said, we should all just pray that whatever the parents and the doctors decide works out great for that kid, right? And she agreed yes. And then I said, guess what, Holly? And I said, and I said, and even today in 2023, I'll bet you all the money that mom would trade place with me in a heartbeat. Because that kid died, and my kid is a straight A student, and he's living his best life in Missouri. And Holly Jones responded that she knew of cases of pediatric cancer where the government got involved and forced the parents to treat their kids' pediatric cancer, and that was government overreach. So it is your parental right to let your kid die from cancer, but not receive gender-affirming health care. Kid you not. And that's why I'm in therapy. Many hours. Oh yeah, here we go. Gallows humor, I'm in therapy. Okay, so back to Susie Pollock though, the gal, the parental rights anti-vax lady. And this is our friend Patrick Mann from Lee Summit.
One of the great things about going to Jefferson City is the wonderful, incredible people that you do get to meet, like Kevin. And Patrick is, again, one of those people.
Yeah, and he tweeted, you know what was the best part about today? When Susie Pollock asked me to think about the kids' orgasms. And there is always some batshit crazy things that these people say, talking about your kids' orgasms or dehumanizing language. Nick Schroer said he wanted to be Wolverine when he was a kid, and like doctors turn him into Wolverine.
I'm sure everyone remembers Mike Moon's comment about childhood marriage from this past legislative session. That was in one of the Senate hearing or House hearings, and it was in a discussion with Peter Meredith, God bless him, and completely overshadowed the fact that Mike Moon was talking about we don't allow kids who want to be pirates to poke out their eyes and cut off limbs, to which I'm like, there aren't any
pirate-affirming gender or clinics.
Out
name
there.
one pirate-affirming clinic out there, and then we'll talk about it.
This is not something that's been studied for years, like gender-affirming healthcare for kids. So, that sort of thing, it's a complete way to, again, take a discussion away from what we're actually talking about and talk about non-existent issues. And it's just infuriating when words and that sort of stuff gets airtime and isn't refuted.
Yeah, Jay Ashcroft said, what if kids want to become a bird? I think Andrew Koenig said something about like kids wanting to become astronauts or rocket ships.
Someone's like, my kids can't decide what leggings to wear in the morning. How can they decide on their gender?
This was the leggings comment. That was a Rockwood school board member who said, how can kids know what their gender is? My girls can't decide what kind of leggings to wear. That's not what we're talking about. That's dehumanizing language. That is what the Nazis did in, back in World War II. That's how you make it easy to kill people. You compare them to things that aren't human, right? We have human children. They're not wanting to be Wolverine or a pirate. We also hear absolutely wild things in our school board meetings. We're in Rockwood. It's not even the worst district. Chris is in Francis Howell. I was really hoping she could give some insight into Francis Howell. And another Rockwood school board director, the former Sugar Baby Boot Camp Empowerment Specialist gal, who's now the conservative for Rockwood, she said she wants to throat punch transgender people. She doesn't think transgender people should be allowed to vote. She doesn't think transgender people should be allowed to reproduce. She doesn't think transgender people should be able to drink from the same water fountain as her. Which is, again, why I'm in therapy a lot. So, because she is making decisions over our kids' education. So that's why we're here, educating everyone else, so you can go to these meetings and I can stay home, because it's very painful. Nonetheless, in spite of all this nonsense, the healthcare ban passed in 2023, and Governor Parson signed it into law. I think it goes into effect in August, and we've already heard next year is going to be worse. They've already banned healthcare. Like, we're grandfathered in.
This year.
This year, we're grandfathered in.
Who knows what we'll bring next year?
How we've known this is going to be happening. We did cope ahead. That's a therapy term. We have our testosterone stockpiled. We have it hidden. Yeah, but at least they haven't detransitioned our kiddo, because that was the original intent. Mike Moon wanted to detransition transgender minors until they're 18. So I don't know if they're going to be ripping out puberty blockers and IUDs and all the, what, I don't know. But thankfully, we had a lot of really great Democrats negotiating behind closed doors that had that language removed.
Some of the UK, Finland, Sweden case-by-case basis, very often in the hearings they will say how these countries are restricting gender-affirming care for youth, and that we should be looking to those countries for guidance. The fact that none of them have outlawed gender-affirming care for youth. It's all on a case-by-case basis, which is what we have here in the U.S., and that's what we want, because every case is different. They should be looked at individually.
All healthcare for every single person, every single person should be an individual healthcare decision. No, like, your healthcare does not affect your healthcare. Like, why are we comparing it at all? Should case-by-case basis, stay out of it.
Yeah. And just to Veet and Patterson, the first time we went to Jeff City, we met with Rudy Veet. He was a Republican. I'm not certain where from. And he was adamant that healthcare decisions are between parents, their doctors, and their children, and voted for the legislation this year nonetheless.
Yes. Even though 3 years ago or 4 years ago you said, why do people think that when I become elected I know about healthcare? I don't know anything about healthcare.
And it's because of the pressure
Doesn't matter anymore.
From the top down, because if he doesn't play along, then he's not going to get anything. And Patterson's just one that I have a particular problem with, because as a medical doctor, it seems really egregious that he's voting for things that he knows are terrible, and he's claiming, well, I'm voting for it because it could be a lot worse. You know.
He's voting for the least bad. He knows it's going to be harmful to children, but he's still voting vote for it. No, he didn't vote for it. He's the only one who didn't vote for it. Right? I think he's the only one. I think he's the only one who didn't. Even though he said it was bad. What?
He abstained from one of those bills.
Okay.
But he's getting iced out now, isn't he?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so, but just so you know, we are following the best care practices according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, like the group that has 60,000 members. If you need your continuing medical education, that's who does the stuff. And so, it's the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's the real one. What they're citing is the American College of Pediatricians. This is an LGBTQ hate group, the equivalent of flat earthers, and that is who is driving our medical decisions. So imagine if, like, you had the American Academy of Astrology and there was the flat earthers that were like, but we want to talk about flat earth. They're like, no, you get kicked out. And then all of a sudden those people are making the decisions. It's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. And I've been telling my mom and dad since 2020 about this, and they're like, they can't do it. There's no way they're going to get it done.
Nonetheless.
They did it, didn't they, Trish? Okay. Did I skip one? Okay. Hold on. Did I do it all?
Yeah, go.
Okay. All right. So, nonetheless, healthcare bans are being overturned across the country. A judge in Arkansas just ruled. What was the?
That the gender-affirming care. So in Arkansas, which is the same district that Missouri's in, federal courts, ruled that the gender-affirming care is, they blocked the Arkansas law because the lawsuit that says it's unconstitutional is most likely going to win on its merits. And if you really, there's a finding of fact and conclusion of law, there's a link there. If you want to read the sort of stuff that we get to hear in Jeff City, you can read that. And it was so refreshing to have someone take a look at that who is in a position of power and point out all the BS in it. Like, the government's witnesses in the case had never treated a transgender minor or an adult in their entire lives. And these are the people that the state was relying upon to be experts, which are the same types of people that we see in Jefferson City, people that have no qualifications whatsoever.
Yeah, we have conversion therapists come every year. Conversion therapy is legal in Missouri, just so you know. Not everybody realizes that. Okay. But there was a permanent injunction in Arkansas, and then also Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, and Texas have also temporarily blocked. And there are lawsuits. It's just a huge waste of taxpayer dollars. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of emotional energy. My farm is behind schedule every year. I'm trying to have this new little organic farm, and I'm always behind schedule because I'm in Jefferson City, and I really should just be there composting and planning my biological warfare. So I literally have a whole biological warfare plan if you come at me. It involves compost, and you gone. All right. There's also the youth sports ban. This is all just a bunch of malarkey. The ban, the ban that they passed this year is all the way from kindergarten. And my husband can tell you, and anybody, Kathy Balmer, does not even play the sports balls, but she said if she was on a team, she would want me on her team and not the other team, because you should be much more scared of me on the other team than a transgender girl. Most trans kids aren't great at sports. They have gender dysphoria. They usually ride the bench, and all we've heard of, like Leah Thomas, there's one swimmer out of the tens of thousands of athletes, there's one in one sport that won one event, and that time has already been broken. She's already been beaten.
Yeah, her records have been beaten.
Records have been beaten by cisgender people, so they're making cisgender girls even better at sports. In Missouri, only 13 transgender kids have used the Misha policy and gone through the whole policy since it started, I don't even know, a while ago. So when we are talking about transgender girls are taking over sports, I mean, is it because Missouri is so low in education that that's our definition of taking over? Because it sounds like 1 or 0. But again, people here are dumber than shit.
One thing to note about this legislation is it also includes private schools, and that was added as an amendment to the original ban. And we kind of believe that it was added because one of our friends, Rabbi Daniel Bogard, is involved in a Jewish private school, and we kind of think that that was tacked on there to focus on him and his school personally. And we have other transparent parents, who send their kids to private school for reasons such as they want to have inclusive things for their kids. And this takes away that for private schools, which is just egregious.
Yeah, but what you should tell your kids about sports, there's a lot of ways we can help girls in sports. And we know that girls' sports aren't funded very well. Like if the girl does get a scholarship for basketball and they make it all the way to the NCAA, like Sweet 16, I think we all saw the videos of what the girls' gym looked like versus the men's gym, right? If we want to help girls' sports, we can give them money. If they make it all the way to the WNBA, they're still going to have to take a second job in another country because they're not going to get paid money here that they're worth. And I've never seen a single Republican here in Missouri saying we need to pay women athletes more money or we need to invest. No, it costs $0 to attack trans kids, but they have to make real investments to help actual students.
Fairness comes up a lot in the sports ban things, and so rural schools in Missouri 4 days a week. Do you think they have the same chance as somebody who's going 5 days a week and is able to meet with their team and practice that extra day?
No, when they get to sports, after they have to go an extra hour to school, and then they go to practice after that, is their practice going to be as effective in a school that's going 4 days a week versus something like Rockwood or Parkway that has better funding, that has access to like all kinds of facilities nearby? If we're going to be real about this, the kids that have the money are the ones that have the advantage, not some transgender girl in Nixa, Missouri, trying to run track.
The Misha process was quite intensive. One of our friends, their kid went through it, and they had to submit the paperwork. There were questions. They had to resubmit the paperwork and meet with doctors numerous times. So it's not like you can just show up as a transgender athlete and start playing. There are lots of hoops that you have to jump through in order to play sports.
Takes a long time.
Previous to the ban that they just recently passed.
Yes. And nonetheless, in spite of all this, we are supposed to show up and speak calmly and have a smile on our face and when I really want to, like, mama bear, claw someone's face off. So, but we're going to protect trans kids, right? This is my kid, by the way. Well, Chase Strangio, he's an attorney with the ACLU, and this is him in 2021, saying a trans young person is testifying in Missouri right now, asking to be seen and treated as a kid, and ending by saying that he hopes the legislators have a really good evening. Protect these kids at all costs. That was my kid, right? That was my kid that testified, that was polite.
He doesn't testify in Jefferson City
No.
anymore because of the things that he has witnessed. And
The Elaine Gannon incident, if anyone knows about the Elaine Gannon incident, that was the last time Miles testified. And there's a lot of time, many kids haven't gone back.
Elaine Gannon, it was a sports bill. Somehow the discussion morphed into talking about the bathroom bans, and they were talking with a friend.
She asked, Elaine Gannon, Senator Elaine Gannon asked a transgender kid out about their genitals and whether or not they had the procedure or they were going to have the procedure. So,
In an open hearing.
PSA, do not ever ask anyone about their genitals. I don't care if they're a grown woman or a trans child. That's just inappropriate, okay? I feel like a senator who was a teacher in DeSoto, Missouri, a PE teacher who used to make sure her students used to shower.
If you'd like to hear more, we can talk.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm going to leave that go. But it's all projection. It's all projection. Let's just leave it at that. But we're here to protect trans kids. Ways you can help. You can listen to trans people. You can listen to parents of trans kids. You can talk to your neighbors, your family, your friends. There is a mom, my husband, when I say Stephanie, he's like, Stephanie, the nice mom in Rockwood? I'm like, yes, Stephanie, the nice mom. She listened to me, and we've had many conversations in the last couple of years, and her dad was over and was spouting off something he heard, some misinformation he heard, and Stephanie, the nicest mom I've ever met, shared what I shared with her dad. And she's messaged me this on Facebook, and she's like, hey, I just want to let you know I had a conversation with my dad, and he's now fully in support of trans kids and their health care. And I was like, shut up, you're lying to me, you know I'm having a hard time, and you just want to like make me feel happy. And she's like, no, I promise you, I actually had this conversation, I shared everything that you told me, and he had no idea, I'd never heard that before, and it makes sense to him, and now he supports transgender health care. So talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to your friends. You can volunteer for a local political candidate. There's a lot of great people running, especially in school boards. You can donate to Promo, ACLU, MTOG, the Metro Trans Umbrella Group, Squish, the St. Louis Queer Support Helpline, Casey Transformations. There's Transparent USA. You can follow Erin in the morning. There's all kinds of things you can do. And if you want more resources, I can give you more resources. If you want to like send me memes about Mike Moon having free candy, that cheered me up for like 3 days. So like, please be creative. That helps. It's funny. And I wrote a couple of letters to the editor. There's all kinds of resources. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
We're going to take questions, and so that everybody can hear, I'm going to bring the microphone, and then place it close to your mouth, okay? Dennis?
So I think it was in Kansas, but somewhere here in the Midwest, where the Attorney General is getting medical records. Is that entering into the fray here? Is the Attorney General trying to seek, I thought I had read something to that effect, getting medical records and that whole issue of the confidentiality of medical records. Can you comment on that, please?
I believe, I'm not certain, like, legally what he's doing. I work at a law firm. I'm a librarian. I like to say I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not certain what sort of, like, behind the scenes they've, to look at records or whatnot. I don't think there's been any court filings or anything along those lines. That said, Jamie Reed, the whistleblower, has basically taken a whole bunch of our kids, our friends' kids' medical records and has them stored somehow, we don't know. Just to let everybody know, if someone steals your medical records, you personally have no recourse under HIPAA.
None.
Like WashU would have to sue Jamie Reed to get anything done about her stealing our medical records. So long story short, The Attorney General, we're very certain, has medical records that are ours or our friends, as well as other journalists that we would much rather them not have access to. So we don't know formally how much he does. WashU did respond to the allegations through the whistleblower and had their own internal report, but I don't know how many actual records were shared with the Attorney General.
How is that not a HIPAA violation? How is it?
It's a HIPAA violation that she took them, but individuals have no right of action under HIPAA. So we have no legal standing as parents. Like, we could sue her for, like, violating our privacy, but in, like, no attorney is going to go after, I mean, again, I know enough to be dangerous. Attorneys work because they get paid. Jamie Reed has no money. You know, they're going to want to sue WashU. We don't necessarily want them to sue WashU because that's where our kid gets his health care.
Yeah,
You know,
and
so
she's not a doctor. She's got a master's in clinical research, and she's, as far as I know, she's an undergrad in cultural anthropology.
Why not
I never heard of-
AG that took the medical records? That's,
yeah, I mean, he didn't take them. He has, you know, he has what Jamie gave him, I'm sure, based on her affidavit and whatnot. But,
We don't know who has what.
yeah.
We don't know what information anyone has about our own kid.
We personally haven't talked to attorneys about it. We have friends that have talked to attorneys about it, and they have basically said, you know, good luck, and it's going to take you a lot of money and time if you want to actually try to do anything about that.
I actually have a question, maybe not so much for the, for you guys, but maybe for the policymakers that are here, but, gender affirming care, is that only against transgender kids and adults, or is that for all people? There's a physical diagnosis called gynecomastia, and that is a male with breasts. And to affirm his gender, he can get a breast reduction.
Exactly.
Would he be in jail, or?
No.
Cisgender people can have kids. So
So it's
cisgender
only
males-
transgender
Yes.
people in the bill. It's specifically in the bill that says transgender people do not have access to gender affirming health care.
Correct. Like a cisgender girl can have breast reduction, breast enlargement.
Okay.
Transgender
Use
girl could not.
Birth control, like
Yes,
that.
all those.
For
So
now.
The healthcare bans that has passed in the legislation only affect children. The Attorney General wanted to do an emergency rule that he withdrew once the legislation passed and after getting beat in court numerous times. And that was going to go after adults. And it had a whole bunch of crazy things, you know, like requirements to test whether someone was being under the influence of social contagion, of which there is no test. So they had requirements for which there were no medical tests that someone could actually take to fulfill the requirements. So it basically would have banned transgender care across the board for everybody.
So wasn't that the deciding factor in the Arkansas case, that you cannot ban gender affirming care, is violates the Constitution, is the equal protection, right? So that
Equal
judge
protection
said-
is that one, exactly. If you're gonna allow
So why
care,
can't it be right here?
it can, and that's, we just have to wait for somebody to sue our legislature
They
and
will.
waste more state money.
Yep, we're just
The
going to
other-
waste more money.
The other thing, it's equal protection, also the due process clause, which is, you know, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You know, we can decide what our kid needs, you know, better than anybody else can, you know. And taking away the rights of a parent to decide what's best for their child is like fundamental. You know, this is like our kid's bodily autonomy, and people are telling our kid, you know, what they can do with their own body, which is anathema. Yeah.
Go ahead, start repeating the questions there.
Oh, thank you.
So I remember, I read through a lot of it when it was all happening, but there was something about autistic people not allowed to make that decision, period.
Correct.
So the implication is that if you are autistic, that you don't have any decision-making
And
ability, and is that just children, or is that children and adults who are autistic?
that was Attorney General, so it applied to adults.
Okay, so repeat the question.
Oh, yes. Does The question was was about autistic people and whether they were able to get gender-affirming health care if it was banned under the legislation. The legislation doesn't say anything about that. The Attorney General's emergency rule, which didn't go into effect, did say that. But it also, besides autistic, it also included things like if you had anxiety and depression. And so if anybody knows how anxiety and depression, you would have to cure. And in all seriousness, for our child, the cure for his anxiety and depression was gender-affirming care. He does not need to see a therapist since he's been affirmed in his gender. Like, all the issues that he has have resolved just because we've given him the love and care that he asked for and deserves, and needs.
I just want to say that as a trans person in Missouri, we all have anxiety right now and depression. So.
Yeah. And it's, some of the stories, we can tell our story, but there are other stories out there that we like that I think will show some of these. Chris would have been nice to have here, but there are others, like we have a friend we met through Transparent, and their story of how their kid came out to them it always touches me. They were a very free spirit, did not gender their child in the sense of, you're going to wear pink, I'm going to cut your hair. Let the kid decide what they wanted to wear. Let the kid decide what their hair wanted to be. People always misgendered the child. And there was the youngest of many. And so they were out watching sports. The parent came up and started talking to the mom. And the parent who was talking to the mom was misgendering the child. And the child overheard it. And when the other parent left.
And the mom did not correct.
The mom didn't correct, because what's the point? It's just too much hassle. The kid came over and just looked up at the mom and was like, I saw what you did. And it just meant so much to that child to have their affirmed gender recognized by their parent. And that was the moment that she's like,
my kid's transgender.
My kid's transgender.
Had no, it didn't know, just didn't.
And this is, and I have to say, and I don't, the issue of passing and being a transgender person comes, it's a terrible thing, because if you pass and you're transgender people, you don't necessarily have the same sort of stigma attached to you. And there are very often kids that we meet, like we'll meet the family and we're like, I don't know which kid is transgender. Because before you hit puberty, all kids look the same. Born in the 70s, I had long hair. I had a sister who was very close in age. When my hair was long, I would get misgendered all the time. It just happens because until puberty, there isn't much difference between the kids. The question is, do we feel safe in Missouri? We feel safe in St. Louis. I can tell you, just recently I have stopped watching the bathroom every time Miles goes in. If we go to Jeff City and Miles is with us, I'm definitely watching the bathroom. Because you never know. And Miles passes, so, we don't necessarily have too much worries. One of our transparent friends organized an event at her church over Thanksgiving and called it Transgiving, because there's so many trans people that have been ostracized from their family, they have nowhere to go. It was a beautiful event. It's just so wonderful with all those people. But so many times when we have things with transgender people, even the joy is tinged with sadness, because you hear the stories that they tell about being afraid. They don't feel safe, and the assault that they have suffered, or the self-harm that they have suffered because of the struggle that they have had coming to grips with who they are. Because it's not a tough decision. I mean, I feel grateful. I've said this numerous times. When I was a teen, it was not an easy time for me. I had depression very severely. And if I had to deal with the issues that these kids have to deal with, I don't think I would have been here right now. Because, if you're a teen and you're a kid and you're dealing with this struggle, you don't have perspective, And to add the whole transgender, and then your legislature's going after you, and you're one of 13 kids in, all time that have played sports, and your government's going after you. That's the stuff. It doesn't make you feel safe, and it's all connected. All this stuff, going after the transgender kids, the laws that they're using to do that are going to allow them to go after other people as well. And these are test cases. This is just the beginning of everything that they're doing.
The most helpful thing you can do wherever you are is create a safe space and make it known.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's one of the reasons that we really wanted to come here, was to just give people more experience, because this is not something that a lot of people have experience with, because there are not a lot of trans people out there, and trans people don't walk around going, hey, I'm trans, because I don't walk around going, hey, I'm cis. It's just, you don't do that, and people just want to live their lives. And that's with our child, I will say, he doesn't want to be known as the trans kid. He just wants to be a kid. The people, his friends, his coworkers, they might know, they might not know. He doesn't stress out about it, but he doesn't want that to be the defining characteristic of who he is, because there's so much more to him than just that, and it's not the most interesting thing about him, I can tell you that for certain.
Well, I think, are there any other questions? Because we are literally running out of time. I can't thank you enough for coming here, bearing your souls and telling your stories. It's been very moving. I think all of
It's nice to have friendly faces. Usually we don't have friendly faces like this when we're telling these stories. It's more blank stares that we're getting, so.
So go ahead, mingle, whatever. We're going to start putting away chairs, and I'm glad you all came. Thank you.
No, I didn't even try. I didn't
All good.
Oh, I'd love another hug. Thanks for coming.